as someone that connects my work to activism in a lot of ways. I like being able to share that process and to really get students, younger people especially, thinking about how they can use their voices for something that's important to them, because I really want my artwork to be something that raises awareness or is critical of contemporary practices.
Give it like 3 seconds of space.
Okay. My name is Kelsey Merreck Wagner, and I am a textile artist that makes weavings entirely from recycled materials, also an environmental activist, an anthropologist, and a curator. Originally, I was trained in printmaking and ceramics, and my undergrad program did not have a fiber art concentration, but I was always kind of fiber curious. And in around 2016, when I was living in Boone, North Carolina, I came into contact with the Blue Ridge Fiber Art Guild and started doing weaving classes with them, and I was pretty much instantly obsessed with it. But I really didn't see a way that it connected to my art practice at first, because my artwork has always been about environmental issues and raising awareness about sort of different human-environment relationships and climate change. And so it seemed like more of a hobby at first, and then during COVID, I started running out of yarn and all the art supply stores were closing, and I really like to buy materials from small businesses locally. So as I ran out of yarn, I started thinking about what I could weave with, and that's when I started thinking about being able to use plastic bags. And then from there, it pretty much just expanded into using all different kinds of recycled materials and having that be a way to talk about consumerism and capitalism and our impact on the planet. So one of the big projects that I did was based on research I did in Thailand about elephant conservation. I made giant life-sized elephants from paper that I had screen printed, and then I wanted them to be 3D and look like actual paper elephants. So I sewed double sides of the paper together in the shape of 2 elephants, and then sewed all of them together by hand and stuffed them with more recycled paper and sewed them up, and then made about 150 life-size tusks out of paper that I wrote different facts about elephants and took information from ethnographies about human-elephant relationships, and then had those all displayed in the gallery as this sort of overview of how human-elephant relationships have unfolded over time. Community is a really big part of my work. I collect all of my materials from not only my household, but from friends, family, colleagues. I post a lot in local Facebook groups and ask for different materials. And one thing that I love about that, other than art materials being free, is the chance to have conversations with people when they donate their materials to me. Being able to talk about sustainability and environmental stewardship. I really want my artwork to be something that raises awareness or is critical of contemporary practices. I love to do a lot of collaborative trash weaving workshops, and I really use that as an opportunity to talk to people about the connections between art and activism and sustainability. And so that's a major part of my workshops, but I also love the idea of bringing people together A lot of times with workshops, you go by yourself and everyone is a stranger to you, but after kind of getting your hands dirty and talking to people for a few hours, you're able to leave with new friends. I also really like to do facilitating environmental cleanups. So that is a really fun way to get really kind of funky, broken, old things. And I've started doing that around the world with my travels. And that's also something that's really cool about trash. I find that it really tells the story of who we are, what we use, what we like. And of course, there's different kinds of trash from all over the world. So a material that I really am excited to work with is rice and fertilizer bags that I get in Southeast Asia. And so sometimes I'll make weavings that are entirely from a certain place, all of the materials, or just keep them in my studio and mix them into my works as I go. So there was one time that I did environmental cleanup on the Mekong River. I was on the Thailand side. And so one of the main types of trash that we found in the river were lighters, and none of them worked anymore. Most of them were like broken in half and empty. But unfortunately, I was able to get them out of Thailand and then into Laos. And then when I was leaving Laos, I got flagged for having about 200 lighters on me. And they are in this other bag filled with all other kinds of trash I had planned to use. And the security agents made me dump all of my trash out onto the floor and pick out all of the lighters. I tried explaining that they weren't in use, they wouldn't cause a problem on the plane, and they told me that I could only pick 3 lighters. So I was only able to pick 3 of them and was super sad to part with the rest of them because I had envisioned making a weaving entirely from lighters. This is one of the first weavings that I made with plastic bags, and was just kind of experimenting with different possibilities of how I could use bigger texture and smaller lines. And this one, I was really interested in using the actual plastic that says please reuse and recycle this bag, to have that as a kind of ironic thing coming out of the weaving. This weaving is from a series called Trash Mountain, and I did this while I was an artist in residence in Thailand with the Jim Thompson Art Center. And the Jim Thompson is really famous for their fabrics and upholstery and silk that they make. So as part of the residency, I was working with the factory where they have all of these different materials and have a lot of scrap and waste left over after everything is cut and ready to be sold. So for this one, I had so much access to different textures and materials, and so you really get kind of a taste of the different things that I'm working with. When I first started weaving with trash, I was working on a small loom called a rigid heddle loom. So I was limited to about 15 feet long by about 30 inches wide. And so at first I was really just experimenting with them, kind of seeing what the possibilities were with plastic. And so I just kept experimenting. I was invited into a juried group show in Chicago and had one of my smaller weavings in there. And that was exciting to get good feedback about it and realize I wasn't totally crazy to be working with trash. So in 2022, when I was living in Thailand, I was offered an exhibit in Bangkok at a gallery called Warren Lab Contemporary, and they only exhibit art that is about social and environmental issues. And so I came up with the idea of doing really massive weavings for that exhibit, and ended up doing 5 weavings that were all about 40 feet long. And that was when I got the idea to start hanging them from the ceiling and have them be kind of these undulating patterns. The idea behind the exhibit was about climate change, and I really wanted to think about sort of the colors of what a fiery apocalypse would look like. And so all of the weavings were red, orange, and yellow. And yeah, got to kind of play around with different ideas and be able to talk about a different environmental issue than just plastic pollution, but how all of these things are interlinked. Part of my research has been in Thailand, in Chiang Rai, which is the northern part of Thailand on the border with Laos with the Mekong River, and got to work with a weaving co-op there and get to see all of the different practices and techniques and patterns. And that was really fun for me to see that they're using a lot of the same things that are used in America or used in other parts of the world. And so having that shared language. Peru was a place I was able to visit my best friend while she was doing research there, and get to talk to some different weavers in the area and visit a collective. And then the really fun part from that was bringing a weaving that I had bought in Peru back to Thailand and showing it to my weaver friends. And it was so fascinating how there were a lot of symbols that are used in both cultures, even though those symbols developed, hundreds or thousands of years ago, without any contact between other places, and yet you're able to identify, oh, that's an image of a chicken or a certain kind of plant, or that dye looks very similar to what we use. And so there's just so many different possibilities with it, and I think that is why it's been really fun for me to kind of be innovative with using different kinds of materials and post-consumer waste, and kind of thinking about how my work is inspired by these histories, but is also something that I'm doing sort of on my own or by myself in a way that doesn't feel like borrowing or appropriating, but more kind of inspiring and in touch with different communities. I'm really excited about recently moving to Winston-Salem and being part of a bigger art community and having so many different resources and galleries and collectives in the area, and being able to connect with other artists, which was a lot harder when I was living in a rural area outside of Boone, North Carolina. I also just recently finished my PhD in visual anthropology, and so during that I was working full-time as an artist, and then also in grad school and also teaching classes. And so it's really nice to finally be done with that and be able to focus entirely on my art. Even though there are a lot of challenges to being an artist, I'm able to really kind of set intentionally what it is I want to do. And so that can be really fun, but then it can also be a little bit stressful being an artist. You really have a lot of different roles that you play if you're thinking about yourself as a business or a product. So there's so much work that artists do that is not actually making art. You're working on your website and your resume and your social media and sort of getting yourself out there. And so there's a lot of admin work that goes into it. And I like being able to decide when I do that admin work or when I'm creating. And that's something that sort of keeps it interesting for me, even though I know I have different deadlines or responsibilities to manage. I have some weaving residencies coming up in Thailand and Malaysia, and I'm also a founding member of an artist collective in Thailand called the Mekong Artworms, and we do a lot of collaborative arts-based research. So it's been really fun to be able to have an art practice that takes place on 2 different continents and be learning different things from different people and bringing those inspirations back and forth. And then I'm always trying to do different workshops and community engagement things. I am going to be teaching a weaving class at Sawtooth in the fall as well as in the winter. And I'm always looking to meet new artists and collaborate and have fun together.